All right, shalom, shalom. First things first, I want to give honor and praise unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Chakbrash. We say Barakati Yahweh, Barakati Yahushai, Barakati Yahweh, Barakati Yahushai, Barakati Yahweh, Barakati Yahushai, Bahashem, Chakbrash. And we give double honor to our apostles and our elders, which are the apostles, elders, the great millstone, which feed us with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding through the spirit and power of Yahweh Yahushai. 2026, which is the year of apostates, fallouts, and spies. And Lord willing, this be the year we get up out of here, man. All right. This is everything's intensifying. Everything is coming to a head. It's a fluid situation that we're in. All right. Prophecy is in high gear. All right. We're in the midst of Jacob's trouble. All right. These things that are getting ready to take place are getting ready to be severe. And that's why the scriptures say, if it be possible, they shall deceive the very elect. So your mindset should be that there's getting ready to be, by the way of that verse, high level trickery. All right, high level trickery, high level fuckery, however you want to put it. This devil's about to go in. That's why it says that he's come down having great wrath, knowing that he hath but a short time. If he knows that he hath but a short time, that means that he knows what time it is. He knows the shot clock is coming to an end. All right, so let's jump right into this lesson. This is the title's lesson will be Iran war update, death of the dollar on the door. Death of the dollar is on the horizon, something on those lines. I'll see how the spirit has me title it. But the dollar is coming to a head if this situation does not slow down in the next 30 days, because the way the financial market works, if people start making new routes, if the Strait of Hormuz is not opened, it's going to cause a longevity problem for Babylon the Great that's not going to be resolved easily. Okay, and I've heard some news stories say that they're getting ready to send about 5,000 Marines to the Strait of Hormuz, which is just the start of the whole boots on the ground and ground war. Which, hey, that's a tough one, because Iran's no joke. So let's jump into this. The landmass of Iran is no joke. Okay, it's built on mountainous regions. It's hard, diverse. Even going back to Hannibal Barca, the reason why Hannibal Barca wasn't able to cross and get into Rome the way he wanted to, because of the terrain. The terrain whooped his army. It wasn't just the war itself, the terrain. So terrain is very important when it comes to war. So if you're going to make a warlike move, you need to have things planned out. And back then, they didn't have GPS and overviews. You just had people that would tell you the path and tell you roads that they ventured by, or they ventured to get to certain places. Okay, so they didn't know the exact path to take. Unlike now, they know the terrain. They know it's a hard terrain. That's the one thing they say about the Iranian land masses are very hard and very painstaking terrain to go through. So, they got the work cut out for them. So let's jump into this. I got this video from the Apostle Elder Haram Lab that was going into, I think another brother had posted this video. And then this is from the Jimmy Dore show. So this is fair use, fair use. This is for educational purposes only. Catherine Fritz, I'm very familiar with. I've been watching her plays on things for many years now. I'm surprised they knocked her off. She probably an insider, a daughter or somebody important, who knows. But long story short, she breaks it down and tells you the ins and outs of what's going on with this new financial system. And she also brings out about these elites. There's no way you taking these elites down or taking the power structure down if you don't have a space-based weaponry. That's exactly her words. So that's how you know we're gonna need divine intervention. These higher up elites, the ones that are really ruling, you got to have high level weaponry, because they have the top of the top, the creme de la creme, the what does it say, the mount. They hold the top of the hill when it comes to weaponry and things that they're able to do on the planet Earth. Okay, so I'm getting ready to play this. She's gonna go in. I'm gonna pause it here and there. I got a few articles I have pulled up But the main point is the dollar crashing is a part of all of this because we know that two kings can't sit on the throne. So you can't have the digital currency simultaneously and have the dollar cash and all those things that we're using today. So they're going to have to refresh everything and redo everything. And that's what she goes in and says. So listen closely. All right. I say again, this is for fair use, fair use. This is for educational purposes only. So let's listen.
Constitution, and they continue to do things that consolidate power, and war is one of them. And I think that problem is going to keep getting worse and worse and worse until they fail or we change it.
So the problem you mean of secret governance control over us, that problem?
Well, it's both a secret governance system. So let me go back. The fundamental bureaucracy or the key bureaucracy to that control system is the central banking system. And the model we've used in the West is called the central banking warfare system. So the central banks print money and the military makes sure they take it. And every 80 to 120 years, that system does a reset, which is a monumental change. It's a complete and in fact, it's a change in which plague laws traditionally have been part of what they do to centralize control of labor and capital and, do their reset. Oftentimes you switch the reserve currency when that happens. And we are in the middle of a reset. And it's a gut-wrenching one because you're talking about unbelievably fundamental changes to the central bank warfare model. They're looking to use digital technology to go to a whole new model that sort of ends currency and goes to a technocratic control grid. That's a once every 500 years event. That's huge. So if you're feeling like you're being rocked and rolled, that's why. It's the reinvention of everything.
So you're saying this reset, when was the last reset?
It was basically the Spanish flu and after World War One. They did a reset. And essentially, if you go back.
So what she's saying is that the financial reset happens, and we know this by way of monitoring history and also going into prophecy, because Babylon the Great had to be that's why the scripture, if you see the statue with Nebuchadnezzar, where it says that the woman, okay, or when you see the statue that was prophesied, and then it also was prophesied again and seen in a different vision as the woman that sat upon the scarlet colored beast going to the 10 toes, partly weak and partly strong, okay, iron mixed with clay. But the statue was showing a succession of nations or succession of kings and rulers and nations that would come in and come out. One would come in and one would come out. So now we're in the part of the feet, okay? We're in the feet of it now. And then the prophecy of Babylon sitting on the beast and being that the harlot, all right, the mother of harlots, okay? Because what is the harlotry? A woman of the night, a prostitute. And what is a prostitute? It sleeps with many different lovers, okay? And how has she been a prostitute? Why was the word prostitute used? Because Babylon goes throughout the world with it's not just its money, okay? It's not saying the money aspect of it, it's saying the democracy aspect of it. Because what comes behind that money and using the petrodollar, it comes with a lot of influences in the world. And what's one of those influences is having the control and having those that do not want to be under that control, they be exit out, okay? So the woman sitting on the scarlet colored beast, that's Babylon the Great with a golden cup in her hand full of abominations. All right, you see all the things that go on here. It goes on and on with the alphabets, with the lack of obeying the law, statutes, and commandments. It's rampant here. Okay, so that's what you got to see. So that dollar dominance was already set. So we had to go through different time frames to get to that time. So let's go right here. So I looked up. I said I need all the currencies. It says history shows that global reserve status. So I looked up I said, give me all the reserve statuses and the time frames that they were in and then how they fell. And this is what chat gave me. It says history shows that global reserve status is not a permanent privilege. So Babylon has had a good run. So it's not a brand new thing or something out of the ordinary, because you tell the average American, they don't think their life could change. They don't think that what they're doing now or the goodies that they get, which is the only reason that America is so wealthy and able to withstand or able to hold be durable, is because of that reserve currency. They have the ability to print money at an all-time rate, and then on top of that, you have a global hegemony that is pushing the dollar. Now they're moving the dollar for a better, just like when you move on to another woman. You know what I'm saying? You may have one that you deal with, but one might come along and you might want to deal with her a little bit more. Okay? So the same thing with these elites, they're moving towards, because it's a greater control. It's something that's more appealing and more tantalizing to them, is that financial currency. They're good with the dollar. They're making buku money. Okay, they're making money hand over fist, but they're so greedy and they're so centered on power and control that this new money, this new this digital currency, by the way, it's CBDC and everything else, which is going to be furthered into that mark, okay, that marky mark, which is going to be a power grid, just like she says in that video, a grid control. You're going to be put into that. It's a digital prison. You don't have to. The whole earth will be turned into that digital prison unless you're out of the system. Okay, and it says privilege. It says global reserve status is not permanent privilege, but a cycle of approximately 80 to 100 years. See, and she said about 500 years. But some of these were joined together. It says typically ending due to fiscal overextension. You see it now. Lost wars and the rise of a more effective financial competitor. Below are detailed timeline of global reserve currencies, their life cycles, and an analyst of the US dollar status as of March 2026. So let's read it. It says historical timelines of global reserve currency, 1450 to present. Hegemon. So ask yourself now, what is the word hegemon mean? What does hegemon mean? So the word here, I looked up the word hegemon. The word, here we go, Salakia. The word hegemon, it says hegemon. A hegemon is a dominant state, group, or person that exerts supreme power, influence, or leadership over others, particularly within international relationship, political, or politics, or economics, or Salakia. Economics, Salakia. The word was escaping me for a second. I said, damn. But it says, derived from Greek word leader, a hegemon dictates or strongly influenced political culture or economics norms, such as 19th century Britain or modern U.S. economic influence. So we got what hegemon here. So you got the hegemon, which you got Portugal, which currency was the real. Okay, birth was 1450, so that's when they started a global reserve currency. Okay, Portugal was the real, and the death was the birth was 1450, the death was 1530. Reason for shift: dominance in maritime trade and exploration lost to Spanish naval and colonial expansion. See? So we're showing you. Next one, Spain. Okay, because they won. They beat Portugal out. So then the Spain had the reserve currency, the real de ocho, or ocho. It sounds like that. It's like if I'm butchering it, but to show you that they took over that currency. But what they did was they made it sound current, like the last one, so they didn't shake up too many people. It was the real, but it was the real D Ocho. Okay, 1530 to 1640. All right, that was the birth and the death. And it says the reason for the shift for the Ocho, the real D Ocho, was backed by American silver mines, decline due to hyperinflation from oversupply and costly European wars. So Spain was done out by that reason. Okay, Netherlands, the guilder. Okay, 1640 to 1720, rise of the Dutch East Indian Company. Okay, which Small Hats was behind that. So they've been behind all of these shifts, man. They've been doing these shifts and moving the goalposts towards this main goal. So this is their baby. This is their magnum opus. This is their great work when it comes to the financial system, is to move everybody into this digital currency. Okay? Because they've been manipulating currencies throughout history. Now they're coming to their final hurrah, but because the Lord said while they're about to fill their belly, he's going to cast fire on them, man. Okay? And it says, mines declined due to hyperinflation. It says, backed by American silver mines, declined due to hyperinflation for oversupply in Eastern and costly European wars. See? Next one. Netherlands, Guilder, what is that? 1640 to 1720. Rise of the Dutch Indian Company fell due to military exhaustion from wars with France and England. So that was that's what took that currency out of the play. Next was the Germano franc, the franc. Okay, and that was from 1720 to 1850. It says Enlightenment trade collapse following Napoleonic Wars and the British Industrial Revolution, and we know who made money from that skirmish with Napoleon. Okay, if you go back to the history, you'll see who made the most money off of that. So they've been behind a lot of these skirmishes and a lot of these things because they're moving the goalposts towards a certain destination. Britain, the pound sterling, 1850 to 1920, global trade and global gold standard bankrupt by the imminent cost of World War One, immense cost of World War One, because money wasn't printed like that. It wasn't just put out in they had powers to do it, but it wasn't printed at the magnitude that it is today. And then the U.S. dollar, 1921, active. So it's an active currency. It says overlooked sterling post-World War II, World War One, solidified by Bretton Woods in 1944. So that's it on that. Let's see here. It says, 2, reason for currency deaths and switching. Debt overextension. What is nation spends more on maintaining its empire military than if the economy generates. Its debate is currently to pay bills, destroying trust. And that's what you see taking place, man. All right. Loss of trade dominance. Reserve status follows the large trade power. When the Dutch lost trade routes to the British or the British to the Americans, the currency followed the cargo, conflict, and displacements. Major wars acting as a reset button. A Napoleonic War ended French dominance. World War II. World War III ended Britain's dominance. See here, U.S. dollar versus Iran conflict. As of March 17, 2026, the U.S. dollar is navigating a paradoxical period. While critics have predicted its death for years, recent global geopolitical events have actually temporarily straightened its position. War with Iran affect current status. Outbreak of the 2026 war, early March, has triggered flight, a flight of to quality. See, because they're gonna move from paper to gold, tangible wealth, silver. That's what it say. Gold is the currency of kings, and silver is the currency of gentlemen. Okay. Energy stocks with oil prices spiking over 100 to 120 barrels per barrel due to conflict in the Persian Gulf demands the dollar has increased because oil is still primarily priced in dollars and petrodollar system. Stalled rates cuts, inflation pressure from the war have forced the Federal Reserve to keep interest rates higher for longer, making the dollar more attractive to hold than euros. But yeah, the main point's been hit. I mean, there's just more information going down here. Global GDP or the debt of GDP. Let's see here. Here we go. This is the book of Zephaniah 3 and verse 8. NLT, it says, therefore be patient, saith the Lord. Soon I will stand and accuse these evil nations. And what evil nations that speaking of? These Edomites first and foremost, and then these other nations that are in bed with these Edomites. Because the spirit jumped on the Iranians to bomb the neighbors and those that host U.S. bases. So they hitting everybody. They hitting everybody and they're letting those that do not have any ties with Babylon to go through the strait. Just like China, Russia, those are their allies. They're allowing them to go through the strait. So it's only close to Babylon. So they're gonna have to do something, man. Okay, because the earth is continuing and Babylon is sort of looking like that, that thing in the corner, that nobody wants to deal with. You just had the NATO denied entering into the conflict. So that's showing you a lack of cohesionness because they're not wanting to hop into another war and another skirmish that has no what does it say? They don't have no skin in the game. Because what are they going to get out of it? The strait is open to them if they're not dealing with Babylon directly. So that's forcing forcing Babylon to be isolated. Isolation, okay? And it says, therefore be patient, saith the Lord. Soon I will stand and accuse these evil nations, for I have decided to gather the kingdoms of the earth, and pour out my fierce anger and fury on them. All the earth will be devoured by the fire of my jealousy. So you're gonna see, and the earth is gonna be here forever. So it's not talking about a world-ending situation. All right, the Lord has prophecy flaming up in the world. People got to know the scriptures are real. And what's the one main cataclysm is us, starting with the apostles and elders and their elders and men that stood on the corners so boldly and stiffly for the name of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, have prophesied this and have spoken of these things. Now they know that a prophet have been among them because they can't say they didn't hear it. They might have ignored it, but they can't say, if you tell somebody it's going to rain and they say, now I don't believe you, and it start raining outside, that's on them. You told them that it was going to rain. It don't matter if they believed it or not. They still going to get wet. So the world is getting wet by prophecies right now. The prophecies is raining down on the world as we know it, man. Okay? So the Lord is gathering these nations and gathering these people and bringing them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, which we know as Yahweh Shaphat, Yahweh's judgment. Okay? So all of these things are culminating, and Babylon is caught in a trap. It can't. And then there was reports that the aircraft carrier was hit. Okay, so they're hightailing out of there, man. And if the world sees that, and that power dominance and that bully status is taken away, you may still have weapons. You stay maybe tough, but if a guy that wasn't as big as you knocked you out, You still have to live with that. You still have to live with you didn't win that fight. Okay? You didn't win that. You didn't win that skirmish. Okay? So let's keep playing this.
The reserve currency was the sterling, and then the US created the Federal Reserve that gave them the ability to then do, between World War I and World War II, a duopoly between sterling and the dollar, and then World War II it went all to the dollar. And so the last reset basically moved from sterling to the duopoly with the dollar and sterling after World War I.
Oh, okay. And that was, but the creation of the Fed was before World War I, right? Correct?
Right. Before you can have reserve or currency responsibility, whether it's as sharing it with the sterling or sharing it with or being your own reserve currency, you need certain infrastructure to manage those positions and interaction with other parties around the world. And that was one of the reasons they wanted to put the Fed in operation. But at the same time they brought in the Fed, they did all sorts of things to back up that system, including creating the IRS and implementing all sorts of federal taxation. And I would say they also brought in the drugs and significantly increased drug trafficking in the United States to build the enforcement mechanisms that they also needed. So that, there was a series of different things that happened at the same time they did the Fed, which reorganizes institutions to help to continue to centralize control of power.
And so right now there's a reset happening that is as big as that?
I would say bigger.
Really?
See, listen to this part. She said, I would say bigger. So this is the biggest reset because this is the time of prophecy. There's going to be a reset. There's going to be a financial reset, but it's going to be for the Israelites. All these things, the turmoil, Jacob's trouble, all these things are leading to the downfall and the uplifting of the kingdom to come. That's why Psalms, the 2nd chapter says, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? Vain thing is thinking that they finna rule after they've been in bed with Babylon and fucking the planet Earth up. Pollution, all the wickedness, the thief, the rob, the rape, the murders, the secret rituals, all these shit that's coming out with the Epstein. These people are done, man. The Lord, it says he shall give it to those that shall pity the poor. It says he setteth down one and he lifteth up another, man. So they're done. They served their time. Moab was in bed. Elam was in bed. All these other nations that have a high stake in the economy we have today, you're being pushed out of the way, man. The Lord is raising up his people and setting up a standard because the Lord's people is getting knocked and bombed right now in the land. That's what, because when the Lord said he set up his people, they should learn war no more. Okay? They said they're just going to burn the weapons. There ain't going to be no more weapons of war. So that can't be the people. That right there shows you that, guess what? There ain't no benevolent power coming to the aid of Amalek. Okay? Unless they try to blue beam something. But even then, because Persia ain't playing, man. Them Persians are with it. Okay? Oh, yeah, let me get this video real quick. Hold on. My saved. Hold on. Salakia, forgive me. Let me show you Iran real quick. This is something this is a video I seen earlier, and it's on point. Hold on. Right here. Listen to this. Fair use, fair use.
Cannot be.
Watch this.
Iran built a military that cannot be stopped. Not by bombs, not by assassinations, not even by Iran itself. Here's the doctrine that explains why this war has no off switch. When Saddam Hussein's military collapsed in 11 days in 2003, Iran's generals watched and drew one conclusion. A centralized military dies when you kill the head. So in 2005, IRGC General Mohammad Jafari formalized what is now called the Mosaic Doctrine. The idea? Break the military into 31 pieces, one per province, and make each piece capable of fighting alone forever. Each of Iran's 31 provincial commands has its own headquarters, its own weapon stockpiles, its own intelligence network, its own sealed orders, pre-written, pre-authorized, that activate the moment Central Command goes silent. No signal needed from Tehran, no order from the supreme leader. The trigger is the absence of an order to stop. This isn't a flaw in the design, it is the design. On February 28th, Israel and the US struck Iran's leadership infrastructure in what they called Operation Epic Fury. Khamenei was killed. The communication backbone that would carry
That's what you call a dead man switch. The same thing that Russia has, but a different version of it with their nuclear arsenal. This is what is the version of Iran's dead man switch.
bone that would carry a ceasefire order
Go back.
degraded by thousands of an order to stop. This isn't a flaw in the design, it is the design. On February 28th, Israel and the US struck Iran's leadership infrastructure in what they called Operation Epic Fury. Khamenei was killed. The communication backbone that would carry a ceasefire order degraded by thousands of strikes. And the 31 commands kept firing. Because the doctrine said, if no one tells you to stop, don't stop. Here's where it gets remarkable. Hamas, the organization Iran armed for 17 years, publicly asked Tehran to stop targeting neighboring countries this week. The axis of resistance is arguing in public for the first time since it was created. Because even Iran's own proxies now understand what the doctrine's designers never built in. There is no off switch. The machine was built to survive without an operator. The operator is gone and the machine is running. This is not a war Iran is winning. This is a war Iran can no longer.
Watch this.
See?
Iran built a military.
So they can't stop. We'll say can't stop, won't stop. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. So they ain't no way to stop it. There's no way they gonna have to nuke. They gonna have to do something. The Lord gonna have to calm it down. But the train gonna keep moving. The centralized government is gonna keep going until there's an election. There's some deal made. That's why they're not going to the table. It's just gonna keep going. They're just gonna keep going. That's a dead man switch. Just like if you have a dead man switch, your hands on a grenade, and if your body lets go of that switch, it's gonna explode anyway. So the hand is killed, and then the thing exploded. That's why they weren't expecting this. They didn't know the complications of what could happen. So this is a taste of what Russia's dead hand switch looked like. That means if anybody strikes the leadership of Russia, the missiles is just gonna launch, and they're gonna keep launching. They're gonna launch them all at the same time, Salakia. They just gonna all launch because there's nobody to tell it not to launch. There's nobody to put the codes in to stop it. So it's a dead hand switch, man. Okay, so we living in beautiful times. We living in prophetic times, biblical times. Home is around the corner. We waiting on the MOTB, the financial crisis, and this could very well lead to that financial crisis and lead to the implementation of the MOTB, and then the Lord is going to make a move after that. All right, so we close with that. I say, call Allah Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahweh Shai, B'Hashem Echak Urash. Until the next time, I say Shalom, and more not, and never keep faith. Shalom.